It's tier list time. So we've already done a tier list. We did a tier list on vocal mics, and we also did it with no budget. Spend whatever you want. The U87 AI was in like S tier or something. Here, you can go check it out here if you want. This is budget microphones. It's also not about vocals. These are generalist microphones that can be used on anything. Most of these are microphones I've tested. All of these are microphones I have experience with. So if your favorite mic doesn't show up on this, it's probably because I've never tried it. If you can't tell, we're doing this because I'm not home or in my studio. Also, if you're wondering why I'm using an SM7B rather than an RE20, stick around for next week's video. I got a spicy one. I just realized I named it Budge Microphones rather than Budget. So all of these are under $350. That's what I've decided is sort of an attainable budget to reach for a microphone. I understand budget means different things to everyone. I just had to put the price cap somewhere. And in my mind, anything under $350 with enough work, is relatively attainable depending on, your circumstance. One of the things I'm definitely going to be worried about is room rejection. If these are budget microphones, room rejection is one of the biggest things. So let's hear a word from our sponsor, DistroKid, first. DistroKid, if you didn't know, is how you publish your music to basically every streaming platform you could think to want it on. That's going to include everything from Spotify to Apple Music to YouTube, TikTok, Amazon, everything. It's also a service I believe in wholeheartedly because of the fact that as musicians, we tend to not publish any of our projects anywhere, and we keep it in the bowels of our computer, never to see the light of day. And honestly, if I did that, I would not be speaking to you right now. All of this for only $20 a year. It's pretty amazing. Today, we're talking specifically about a feature on DistroKid called Hyperfollow. Hyperfollow is a completely free promotional tool that helps you advertise your music. It's a one-stop shop for everything that you could think to want as an artist. That includes all the different links to all your different songs on all the different streaming services, and it also can include something like your store and your merch link. Hyperfollow also automatically updates, so if you happen to upload a new song, it will automatically be shown on that page. Not to mention, you can customize this page to look exactly how you want. Okay, thank you to DistroKid for sponsoring this video. Let's get into the tier list. So I guess to start, we'll start the same way I did last time by outlining one S tier, one B tier, and one F tier. In S tier, and I don't think anyone's probably surprised by this, we're going to put the 440 Pure. For $270, you're getting a microphone with extremely low self-noise. You're getting a microphone that is built superbly and has amazing peripheral support, a magnetic pop filter, plus an amazing shock mount that comes with it, and a really nice, beautiful, bright microphone. That's one thing. If you're not a fan of bright microphones and you don't want a sparkly microphone that brings out the brightness in your voice or sits on top of a mix really well, and you're more used to that warmer, darker tone, kind of like the mic I'm using right now, you might not like this mic. But that's a subjective thing, and I think on a lot of objective fronts, this microphone is punching way higher than $270. For B tier, I am going to put the Rode NT1A. The Rode NT1A has a lot of benefits. The Rode NT1A has really low self-noise, and on one hand, that makes it really good for things like spoken word. It's also, though, kind of a bright microphone and kind of sibilant and not particularly good at rejecting the room around it. It's built well. Rode has a great warranty behind it, but in my opinion, there are microphones that handle high-end response better. It's a bit glassy and, a little bit harsh and a little bit sibilant. Now, in F tier, don't hate me, I don't love the Samson CO1. I did a whole review on it, and that review is probably one of the most disliked ones on the channel. Not a ton of dislikes, but, disliked. And that's because, in my opinion, the self-noise on the Samson CO1 was one of the most audible self-noise I've heard on a microphone. I'm not sure, I think it's around 20 dBA self-noise though. It's one of the only microphones that when I plugged it in and I listened to it, I'm like, wow, I hear the self-noise. I hear the hiss. I don't even have to boost it. I don't have to treat it. It's just super audible. And for a lot of purposes, that is just not good to have, especially if it's a budget microphone. This might be one of the only microphones in your collection. You keep layering that self-noise, your noise floor in your track is just gonna get super audible. Let's go to C tier. C tier, I'm going to put the 512 Audio Skylight, probably like low C tier. This microphone is kind of a weird one. You know, I love the design of it. I love the build quality. It comes with a pop filter. It looks great on camera. The frequency response is pretty mellow and dark, and it does that dark tone in kind of a divisive manner. It's definitely a sculpted sound. It's not particularly flat. And if you look at the comment section, some people are like, this thing kind of sounds weird. And that low mid range is kind of funky on this microphone, which means it's probably not for everyone. It's going to take a particular voice to suit it. And also on top of that, it is a rebrand. I don't remember the name of the mic it's based on. I'll put it on screen now. They might have tuned it differently, but this microphone had already been made before. It was just a rebrand. In A tier, let's put the AT4040. I don't think that's that controversial of an opinion. The AT4040 in my mind is a much more elegant and responsible version of the AT2035 and the AT2020. To me, it's got a low mid-range response that I really like in a warm way with less self-noise and kind of in a more controlled, mild, elegant manner. So this mic I've never tested on the channel. I've had the chance to try it out a few times in person, and I've certainly heard it so many times on YouTube, and I do not like the way it sounds. It's the Rode Procaster. This microphone is tailored towards content creation, and it's tailored towards podcasting, right? What do you expect from a podcasting mic? You probably want it to be soothing on the voice. You know, part of the reason people like the SM7B so much is because of the fact that it's so mellow. It's easier to listen to for a long period of time. The Rode Procaster is weirdly bright and weirdly tinny to me when it comes to the frequency response. It's not mellow on your ears. It's not easy on your ears. It's bright and kind of gets a little grating over a long period of time. I don't understand why they put that frequency response for this microphone. Very strange to me. In low B tier, let's put the SEV7X. I liked this mic. I think a lot of people thought I didn't like this mic because I just preferred the SM57 more. To me, it was relatively colored, even though a lot of people in the comments said it should sound more flat than I heard. It's got a pretty intense proximity effect in my opinion, and one of the other reasons it's in low B tier is because of the fact that it didn't reject RF noise particularly well. I found whenever I was using this microphone, I was picking up all kinds of hisses and hums from the room when I was moving it around. But on the bright side, it does sound very condenser-like for a dynamic microphone. Very clear, very elegant when you don't get too close and whenever it's not surrounded by a bunch of RF noises. In high C tier, I'm going to put the AT2020, and because I think they sound basically the same, and I think they're really separated more by features than tone, in my opinion, I'm going to put the AT2035 in low B tier. The main thing holding these microphones back to me are the self-noise measurements on these. Otherwise, I think they would be great for spoken word. I think that would be great for rap. To me, they really solidify low mid-range in a really pleasing way, at least on my voice. But you're being held back by that self-noise, and I can understand how some people think the frequency response is a little bit too sculpted. In A tier, high A tier, I'm putting the Rode NT1. The Rode NT1 has almost everything going for it, in my opinion. It's the right mix of a mellow, low, mid-range mic with a nice presence boost. If you have the older models, it is an amazing hardware set. That is a great pop filter. That is a great shock mount. Probably my best shock mount. Of course, the newer generations have a more generic shock mount, and the pop filter is just fine, but they work. It's got a great tone, great build quality. Some may say that the sibilance is a little bit too bad, but I really think that's more dependent on your voice than the mic itself. But the thing holding it back from S tier is what I mentioned in the beginning. It is just not great at rejecting the room. It is probably one of the worst microphones on this list for rejecting the room. And in a budget microphone tier list, that's going to dock you some points. In D tier, I'll put it in high D tier. The Akg P420 to me has a frequency response that is not pleasing. It is one of these microphones that is trying to be brighter. It's a brighter sounding microphone, but it's one of these microphones that's suffering from the same issue as the Procaster, although a different form factor entirely. It has a harsh, tinny, thin, bright sound to me. It's, to me, kind of sibilant and leaves the voice bright, but it leaves it thin. On the bright side though, it has a bunch of features on the microphone. It's one of the only microphones on this list that has multiple polar patterns. It does have that going for it. Okay, let's talk about the NW800. Okay, hate me if you want. Be as mad at me as you want. But this newer NW800 is not in F tier. It's not in D tier. I would say it's in mid C tier. Hear me out. We are, because it's a budget tier list, factoring in price. It's a $20 mic. It's sibilant. It's horrible at rejecting the room. It's built terribly. But if you know what you're doing, and I made a whole video on this, by the way, you can treat the microphone so it doesn't reject as much of the room. It's not as sibilant. Tune it in such a way that it complements your voice more. Maybe don't compress it too much. And in the right room, this thing can get you really usable results. Andrew Huang did a whole video on it too that I'll link in the description. He compared this in W800 against the U87 AI. And yeah, sure, the U87 AI was so much better, but it wasn't as big of a difference as you might think. Andrew has a great room to record in as well. But, you know, you might have to do it in the closet. You might have to do it in a really muffled space, but you can make this work. And since we're talking about budget microphones, it does not deserve to be at the lowest end of this list. If price wasn't in consideration, then yeah, okay, it would be an F tier. But price is being considered. In high S tier, SM57, come on guys. As a vocal mic in the last tier list, the SM57 started showing up in like C and B tier. But this is a budget generalist microphone tier list. And there is not a microphone on this list that embodies that method better than the SM57. It is the epitome of the mic that you can just throw on anything. And it's $100. Come on. It's in S tier, obviously. And on that note, you can put the SM58 in S tier too. I'm putting it in low S tier just because I like the SM57 better. I like the head on that better. I think it's more usable and more flexible. And honestly, I just like the design better. The SM58's boring. Every child draws an SM58. So let's talk about the E609. The E609 I would put in low B tier. It's a great mic. It sounds awesome, but it sounds awesome on guitar. It's a microphone meant for guitars. So as a generalist microphone, it's not an A tier, it's not an S tier. It's also a microphone that in order to get the most out of it, you need to really crank the volume on your amp. The best tones I've ever gotten out of my 609 were very loud tones, enough to piss off your neighbor. That's why you see these things used in arenas all the time, because they're great at picking up really high SPL signals. So as a budget microphone, for somebody who's probably going to be recording in a bedroom, probably not the best idea. It's also not super versatile. B tier. The MXL 990 is pretty great. I would probably put it in high B tier. For $100, it is a pretty good emulation of kind of a Neumann tone. That seems to be what it's going for. That seems to be its tuning. Even if you look at the frequency response, it's pretty flat, and then it has that shelf in the high end that is pretty indicative of a TLM 103. But the thing holding it back is a really high self noise. So if you're talking about voiceover, you can probably forget about it. 20 dBA self noise, I believe, too high. In fact, mid C tier because of that. Okay, Behringer B1. The Behringer B1 is a solid microphone, I think, for the price. It kind of has an NT1A kind of thing. Pretty nice. I would put it in mid B tier. Not much more to say about that. And finally, the King B. I don't think I said this well enough in my review of the King B. I think I was relatively chill about this and relatively scripted, when in reality, this thing deserved more of a reaction from me than I gave it. The King B is in S tier. The King B is in low S tier. The King B fills a part of the market that I don't think any other microphone really can in this price range, or at least hasn't done it so far. It's a mellow tuning. It's a tuning not dissimilar to the SM7B, but it's a condenser. So it has that fullness that a condenser has. It also has an incredibly low self noise. If you like the big design of it, it looks great on camera. What I'm trying to get at is it's a perfect microphone for content creation, and it's a perfect microphone for voiceover. It's soothing, it's not sibilant. You can listen to it for a long time, much in the same way you can listen to an SM7B, which seems to be what people like about the SM7B. And there really isn't another microphone in this class that does that same frequency response. Yeah, sure. If you look at the frequency response on the microphone, you see a high-end boost and you don't see a particularly low-end focused microphone. But I'm telling you, it is a mellow, chill sounding, darker mic. And to me, it's one of the only options under $350 for a mellow, dark, voiceover microphone. So there you have it. These are the microphones for under $350 that I think you should choose from. I'm going to repeat that these microphones all of them can get you really professional results if you know what you're doing. More than anything else, you need to know how to produce, you need to know how to mix, you need to know how to process your signal more than you need a good mic. At this point, all of these mics are very usable. And with that, you can follow me on Instagram here or here, I don't remember. You can work on a project with me by emailing me here. And with that, I will see you in the next video.